I never thought I'd be one of those people who'd come to Reddit for advice, but here I am. You see, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. I'm Jake, 35, and I've been married to Emma, 33, for 8 years. We've had our share of ups and downs, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened last Christmas. It all started about 6 months ago. Emma and I had been planning a big holiday trip to Aspen. It was supposed to be a celebration of sorts. Emma had just landed a huge promotion, and I was finally getting some time off work. We were both excited, and everything seemed perfect. Looking back, I realize now there were signs I missed, but at the time, I was blissfully unaware. Emma had been acting a bit off, but I chalked it up to stress from her new job. She was spending more time on her phone, giggling at messages and being secretive about her conversations. Whenever I asked, she'd just say it was work stuff or gossip from her friends. I didn't push it. I trusted her. A week before we were set to leave for Aspen, Emma told me she needed to attend a work retreat in the city. It was short notice, but I didn't think much of it. She had always been dedicated to her career. "Jake, it's just a few days. I'll be back before you know it," she said, giving me a quick kiss before rushing out the door. Those few days felt longer than usual. I tried to keep myself busy with work and prepping for our trip, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Emma wasn't as responsive to my texts, and when she did reply, her messages were curt and distant. I convinced myself I was overthinking things. After all, we were about to go on a dream vacation together. Emma returned from her retreat looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. She was back to her cheerful self, and for a moment, I thought I had been worrying for nothing. We spent the next few days packing and making final arrangements for our trip. I even splurged on a fancy new camera to capture all our memories. The morning of our departure, I woke up early to make breakfast. Emma came down the stairs with a bright smile, wrapping her arms around me. "I can't wait for this trip, Jake. It's going to be amazing," she said. Her excitement was contagious, and I felt a renewed sense of optimism. We arrived in Aspen, and the scenery was breathtaking. Snow-covered mountains, cozy cabins, and the crisp winter air. It was everything we had imagined and more. We spent our days skiing, exploring the town, and enjoying each other's company. It felt like a second honeymoon, and I was grateful for every moment. On Christmas Eve, we decided to have a quiet night in. We lit a fire, opened a bottle of wine, and exchanged gifts. Emma had bought me a beautiful watch, something I'd mentioned wanting months ago. I was touched by the thoughtfulness of her gift. In return, I gave her a necklace with a delicate snowflake pendant. She seemed genuinely pleased and gave me a long, heartfelt kiss. After dinner, Emma suggested we go for a walk in the snow. It was a beautiful night, and the idea of a romantic stroll sounded perfect. We bundled up and stepped outside, the cold air biting at our cheeks. The town was decorated with twinkling lights, and there was a festive buzz in the air. We walked hand in hand, talking about our favorite Christmas memories and making plans for the future. As we passed a small park, Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression changed. "I need to take this, Jake. It's work," she said, stepping away. I nodded, understanding but slightly disappointed. I watched her walk a few paces away, her voice low and urgent. Something about her demeanor set off alarm bells in my head. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but the way she kept glancing at me and lowering her voice made me uneasy. I decided to give her some space and wandered towards a bench, trying to enjoy the peaceful night despite my growing unease. After what felt like an eternity, Emma finished her call and walked back to me. Her smile was back, but it seemed forced. "Sorry about that. Let's head back to the cabin," she said, slipping her hand into mine. I nodded, not wanting to ruin the evening with my suspicions. When we got back to the cabin, Emma went straight to the bathroom. I sat by the fire, trying to shake off the nagging feeling that something was wrong. As I glanced around the room, my eyes fell on Emma's phone, left carelessly on the coffee table. I knew it was wrong to invade her privacy, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up and unlocked it. What I saw made my heart drop. There were messages from a contact saved as Sophie's work, but the conversation was anything but professional. My hands trembled as I read through the messages, piecing together the truth. Emma wasn't talking to a colleague, she was talking to another man. The messages were explicit, filled with plans to meet up and declarations of love. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This was the work retreat she had gone on. This was why she had been so distant. The reality of her betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I couldn't think straight. I needed time to process everything. I I put the phone back just as Emma emerged from the bathroom, her face glowing from the warmth of the fire. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked, noticing my pale face. "Yeah, just a little tired," I lied, forcing a smile. "I think I'm going to call it a night." She nodded, looking relieved. "Okay, I'll join you in a bit." I climbed into bed, my mind racing. How could she do this to me? To us? The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my life, had been unfaithful. I lay there in the dark, replaying the past few months in my mind, searching for clues I had missed. The signs were there, but I had been too blind to see them. The next morning, Christmas Day, was a blur. I went through the motions, pretending everything was fine. Emma seemed oblivious to my inner turmoil, happily chatting about our plans for the day. We opened presents, had breakfast, and even went for another walk. But all I could think about was her betrayal. In the afternoon, Emma suggested we visit a nearby lodge for a special Christmas dinner. I agreed, hoping the change of scenery would help clear my mind. The lodge was beautiful, decorated with festive lights and filled with the sound of holiday music. We found a cozy spot by the fireplace and ordered our meal. As we waited for our food, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Emma, can we talk?" I said, my voice shaking. She looked up, surprised by my tone. "Of course, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I know about the messages. I know about the other man." Her face went pale and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Jake, I'm so sorry," she stammered. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I never meant to hurt you." "Then why did you do it?" I asked, my eyes filling with tears. "Why, Emma?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't know. I was feeling disconnected, lonely, and then he came along and I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated, my anger boiling over. "You don't just accidentally fall into an affair, Emma. This was a choice." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You're right. It was a choice. A terrible one. I wish I could take it back." I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. "I need some air," I muttered, walking away from the table. I felt her eyes on me, but I couldn't bring myself to look back. I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me like a slap in the face. I leaned against the railing, trying to calm my racing heart. How could everything fall apart so quickly? I thought we were happy. I thought we were solid. But now, everything I believed in was shattered. To you, dear listener, I'm at a crossroads. I don't know what to do. Do I try to salvage our marriage? Can I ever trust her again? Or is this the end of our journey together? I need advice, perspective, anything to help me make sense of this mess. What would you do if you were in my shoes? I stood outside the lodge, staring out into the snowy landscape. The festive lights and cheerful music seemed like a cruel joke, mocking the turmoil inside me. My breath formed small clouds in the icy air as I tried to collect my thoughts. How did everything go so wrong? I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Emma approach until she was right beside me. "Jake, please," she said, her voice trembling. "Can we talk about this? I know I've hurt you, but we need to talk." I turned to look at her, the woman I had loved for so many years, now a stranger. "What is there to talk about, Emma? You betrayed me. You lied to me. How can we ever come back from that?" She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know, Jake. I don't have all the answers, but I love you. I made a mistake and I'm willing to do anything to make it right." "Love?" I scoffed. "You call this love? Sneaking around behind my back, planning to meet another man? That's not love, Emma. That's betrayal." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I was confused, lost, but I don't want to lose you. Please, Jake, give me a chance to make things right." I stared at her, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, hurt, confusion. Could I ever trust her again? Could I ever look at her the same way? "Why should I, Emma?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why should I give you another chance?" She took a step closer, reaching out to touch my arm. "Because we've built a life together. Because we've been through so much. I know I've shattered your trust, but I believe we can rebuild it. Please, Jake, don't throw everything away." I pulled away from her touch, the pain too raw, too fresh. "I need time to think," I said, turning back towards the lodge. "I can't make any promises right now." She nodded, wiping away her tears. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, waiting, hoping that you'll find it in your heart to forgive me." I walked back into the lodge, my heart heavy. The festive atmosphere now felt suffocating, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I found a quiet corner and sank into a chair, burying my face in my hands. Over the next few days, I went through the motions of our holiday. Emma and I barely spoke, the silence between us filled with unspoken pain. We visited the local sites, took pictures, and even went skiing. But it all felt hollow. The joy of the season was overshadowed by the betrayal that hung over us like a dark cloud. One evening, as I was sitting by the fire, Emma approached me with a tentative look in her eyes. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked softly. I nodded, bracing myself for another difficult conversation. "Sure, let's talk." She sat down across from me, her hands clasped together. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I betrayed your trust. And you're right. There's no excuse for what I did, but I want to make things right. I want to fight for us." I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "How, Emma? How do we move past this?" She took a deep breath. "I think we need help, professional help, maybe couples therapy. We need to understand what went wrong and how to fix it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Jake. I don't want to lose you." Her words resonated with me. Therapy. It was something I had never considered, but maybe it was what we needed, a way to navigate through this mess and find some semblance of healing. "Okay," I said slowly. "I'm willing to try. But it's going to be a long road, Emma. And you need to understand that things might never be the same." She nodded, her eyes filled with hope. "I know, Jake, and I'm ready for that. I just want a chance to make things right." We decided to finish our trip and start therapy as soon as we got back home. The next few days were filled with awkward attempts at normalcy. We took more pictures, went to fancy dinners, and even built a snowman together. But beneath the surface, the pain was still there, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had torn us apart. When we finally returned home, the reality of our situation hit me hard. The house felt cold and empty, filled with memories of happier times. Emma moved into the guest room, giving us both the space we needed to process everything. We started therapy the following week. Our therapist, Dr. Miller, was a kind, empathetic woman who made us feel at ease. She listened to our story, offering insights and guidance as we navigated through the painful terrain of infidelity. "Trust is the foundation of any relationship," Dr. Miller said during one session. "Rebuilding it will take time, patience, and effort from both of you, but it is possible if you're both committed to the process." Emma and I nodded, understanding the enormity of the task ahead. We spent the next few months in therapy learning to communicate, to understand each other's pain, and to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. There were good days and bad days, days when I felt hopeful about our future and days when the pain was too much to bear. But through it all, we kept pushing forward, determined to find our way back to each other. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, Emma and I sat on the couch holding hands. It was the first time in months that I felt a glimmer of the connection we once had. "Jake," she said softly, her eyes filled with tears, "I love you, and I'm so sorry for everything. Thank you for giving us a chance." I squeezed her hand, feeling the sincerity in her words. "I love you too, Emma, and I'm willing to keep trying. For us." To you, dear listener, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, know that there is hope. It's a long, painful journey, but with time, effort, and a lot of love, healing is possible. Trust can be rebuilt and broken hearts can mend. Emma and I are proof of that. Our story isn't over and neither is yours. Keep fighting, keep believing, and most importantly, keep loving. But our journey was far from over. The initial stages of therapy had helped, but the real test came when we tried to integrate the changes into our daily lives. Living under the same roof, navigating work and social obligations, all while dealing with the elephant in the room, was incredibly challenging. Emma and I made a pact to be completely honest with each other, no matter how difficult the conversations might be. We set aside time each week to talk about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. These conversations were raw and painful, but they were also cathartic. One evening, Emma suggested we revisit the place where we had our first date, a quaint little cafe in the heart of the city. I was hesitant at first, but I agreed. We needed to create new memories, positive ones, to help overshadow the pain. Walking into the cafe brought back a flood of memories. The nervous excitement of our first date, the laughter, the connection. It was bittersweet, but it also reminded me of why I fell in love with Emma in the first place. We sat at our old table, ordered our favorite dishes, and talked about everything but the affair. For a few hours, it felt like we were rediscovering each other, peeling back the layers to find the love that had been buried under all the hurt. As the evening came to a close, Emma reached across the table and took my hand. "Jake, I know we have a long way to go, but tonight has reminded me of why I fell in love with you. I'm committed to making this work, no matter how hard it gets." I squeezed her hand, feeling a glimmer of hope. "I feel the same way, Emma. Let's keep fighting for us." Our journey was filled with small victories and setbacks. There were days when I felt like we were making progress, and days when the pain of betrayal resurfaced, threatening to pull me back into the abyss. But each time we faced it together, determined to heal. Emma took full responsibility for her actions, and her efforts to regain my trust were unwavering. She attended therapy sessions on her own, worked on her own issues, and made significant changes in her behavior. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but I could see her genuine commitment to rebuilding our relationship. One day, Emma suggested we take a trip to the mountains, a place we both loved but hadn't visited since the affair. It was a symbolic gesture, a way to reclaim something that had been tainted by her betrayal. We packed our bags and drove to a secluded cabin nestled in the heart of the mountains. The crisp air, the stunning scenery, and the sense of solitude were exactly what we needed. We spent our days hiking, exploring, and reconnecting with each other and with nature. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Emma handed me a letter. "I wrote this for you," she said, her voice trembling. "It's everything I've wanted to say but couldn't find the words." I opened the letter, my heart pounding. As I read her heartfelt words, tears streamed down my face. She poured out her soul, expressing her remorse, her love, and her hope for our future. It was raw, honest, and deeply moving. When I finished reading, I looked at Emma, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. "Thank you," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "This means more to me than you'll ever know." We held each other that night, the weight of the past slowly lifting as we forged a new path forward. It wasn't easy, and there were no guarantees, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. Our trip to the mountains marked a turning point in our journey towards healing. The solitude and beauty of the place gave us a chance to reconnect and find solace in each other's company. But once we returned home, the real challenge began, integrating the changes we had made into our daily lives and continuing to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Life didn't pause for our healing. Work demands, social obligations, and the mundane tasks of daily living all competed for our attention. Emma and I knew that the path to recovery wouldn't be easy, but we were committed to making it work. The lessons we had learned in therapy, the promises we had made to each other, and the small victories we had achieved so far gave us the strength to keep moving forward. One of the most significant changes we made was establishing a routine of open and honest communication. Every evening, we set aside time to talk about our day, our feelings, and any lingering doubts or fears. These conversations were not always easy. Sometimes they were downright painful, but they were necessary for our healing. "Jake," Emma said one evening as we sat on the couch, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said during therapy, about how you felt disconnected and lonely before everything happened. I want to understand how we got there and how we can make sure it never happens again." I looked at her, seeing the earnestness in her eyes. "I've been thinking about that too, Emma. I think we both got caught up in our own lives, our own stresses, and we stopped prioritizing each other. It wasn't intentional, but it happened. We need to make sure we don't fall into that trap again." She nodded, taking my hand in hers. "You're right. We need to make a conscious effort to stay connected, to keep the lines of communication open. I don't want us to ever feel that kind of distance again." Our conversations often delved into the painful details of the affair, which was necessary but incredibly challenging. One evening, Emma opened up about the moments that led to her infidelity. "It started so innocently," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I was feeling lonely and overwhelmed with work. When I met him, he seemed to understand me in a way I felt you didn't at the time. I know now that it was a mistake, but in those moments, it felt like an escape." Listening to her was excruciating, but I knew it was important. "Emma, I appreciate your honesty," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It hurts to hear, but I need to understand. We both need to understand if we're going to move forward." Our honesty sessions weren't just about the past. They were also about rebuilding our future. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and our plans. We made a pact to prioritize each other, to make time for date nights, weekend getaways, and simply being together. It was about creating new memories to overshadow the painful ones. One weekend, Emma suggested we take a trip to visit my parents. It had been a while since we'd seen them, and the thought of being surrounded by family seemed comforting. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" I asked, knowing how difficult it would be to face my family after everything that had happened. "Yes," she replied firmly. "I think it's important. We need to face this together, and I want to show them that I'm committed to making things right." When we arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was tense. My mom greeted us with a warm hug, but I could see the questions in her eyes. My dad was more reserved, his expression unreadable. We sat down for dinner, and the conversation was polite but strained. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside. "Jake, what's going on? I know something's happened between you and Emma, but you haven't told us anything." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Mom, it's a long story. Emma and I have been through a lot, but we're working on it. We're seeing a therapist, and we're committed to making it work." She looked at me with concern. "Jake, we love you both, but we need to know what's going on. We're here to support you no matter what." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I know, Mom. I'll tell you everything, but it's going to be hard to hear." As I recounted the story of Emma's betrayal, my mom listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to sadness. When I finished, she pulled me into a tight embrace. "Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "It's been a rough few months," I admitted, my voice breaking. "But we're trying to move forward." My dad joined us, his face etched with concern. "Jake, we're here for you. Whatever you need, we'll support you." Over the next few days, we spent time with my parents, talking openly about what had happened and our plans for the future. It was difficult, but their support meant the world to me. Emma and my mom had several heart-to-heart conversations, and I could see Emma's genuine remorse and commitment to making things right. As we drove back home, I felt a sense of relief. Facing my family had been a significant step in our healing process. We weren't just rebuilding our relationship, we were also repairing the bonds with those who cared about us. The following months were filled with ups and downs. There were moments of joy, where we laughed and felt like ourselves again, and moments of pain, where the memories of the affair resurfaced. But through it all, we kept moving forward, one step at a time. One day, Emma surprised me with tickets to a concert by one of our favorite bands. "I thought it would be nice to do something fun together," she said, a hopeful smile on her face. I was touched by the gesture. "That sounds perfect, Emma. Thank you." The concert was incredible. For a few hours, we were lost in the music, dancing and singing along without a care in the world. It was a reminder of the simple joys we had once shared, a glimpse of the happiness we were working towards. After the concert, we walked hand in hand through the city streets, the night air cool and refreshing. "Tonight was amazing," I said, looking at Emma. "Thank you for this." She squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. I want us to have more nights like this. We deserve it." As we continued our journey towards healing, we discovered new ways to connect and support each other. We took cooking classes together, went on hiking trips, and even started a new hobby, gardening. It was about finding joy in the little things and building a life that was stronger and more resilient. The months rolled by, each one a step further along the road to healing. Emma and I had weathered the storm, and though the scars of her betrayal would always be there, we had found a way to move forward. Our lives were not perfect, but they were honest, and that made all the difference. One crisp autumn day, Emma suggested we take a walk through the park where we had first met. It was a place filled with memories, both good and bad, but it was ours. We strolled hand in hand, the leaves crunching underfoot, and I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. "Jake, I've been thinking a lot about us," Emma said, breaking the comfortable silence. "About everything we've been through. I know it hasn't been easy, and I know I've hurt you deeply, but I'm so grateful for the chance to make things right." I squeezed her hand, feeling the sincerity in her words. "We've come a long way, Emma. It hasn't been easy, but I'm glad we're here. Together." She stopped walking and turned to face me, her eyes shining with emotion. "Jake, I know it might be too soon, but I want to renew our vows. I want to start fresh, to make new promises to each other. What do you think?" Her proposal took me by surprise, but as I looked into her eyes, I realized it was exactly what we needed. A fresh start, a new beginning. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Emma. Let's do it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning. We decided to keep the ceremony small and intimate, inviting only our closest friends and family. We chose a beautiful spot by the lake, where the autumn colors reflected in the water creating a picturesque backdrop for our new beginning. On the day of the ceremony, I stood by the lake, waiting for Emma. My heart pounded with a mix of nerves and excitement. Our journey had been long and painful, but it had brought us to this moment, and I was ready to make new promises, to build a future together. When Emma appeared, walking towards me in a simple, elegant dress, my breath caught in my throat. She looked beautiful, radiant, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of certainty. This was right. This was where we were meant to be. We stood before our family and friends, holding hands as we repeated our vows. Jake, I promise to love you, to honor you, and to cherish you through the good times and the bad. I promise to be faithful, to be honest, and to always put our relationship first. I'm committed to building a future with you, one filled with love, trust, and happiness. Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke my vows. Emma, I promise to love you, to support you, and to stand by you through all of life's challenges. I promise to be faithful, to be honest, and to always communicate openly. I'm committed to building a future with you, one filled with trust, love, and joy. Our friends and family clapped and cheered as we kissed, sealing our new vows with a promise to each other and to our future. It was a beautiful, emotional moment, and I felt a sense of hope and renewal. The reception was a joyful celebration. We danced, laughed, and shared stories with our loved ones. It was a reminder of the support we had, the people who had stood by us through everything, and it filled me with gratitude. That night, as Emma and I sat by the lake watching the stars, we talked about our future. Jake, I want to build a life filled with new memories, with happiness and love. I know we can't erase the past, but we can create a beautiful future. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace. We've come a long way, Emma, and we have a long way to go. But I believe in us. I believe in our love. To you, dear listener, if you're facing a similar journey, know that healing is possible. It takes time, effort, and a lot of love, but it's worth it. Emma and I are living proof that broken hearts can mend and trust can be rebuilt. Our story isn't just about betrayal. It's about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of love. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready to face whatever came our way. Together, we had faced the darkness, and now we were stepping into the light. Our love had been tested, but it had emerged stronger, deeper, and more resilient. In the months that followed, we continued to work on our relationship, finding new ways to connect and grow together. We traveled to new places, explored new hobbies, and made a conscious effort to prioritize our relationship. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. One sunny afternoon, while we were planting flowers in our garden, Emma looked at me with a thoughtful expression. Jake, do you ever think about starting a family? Her question caught me off guard, but as I considered it, I realized that it was something I wanted. Yes, Emma, I do. I think we're ready for that next step. Her face lit up with a radiant smile. Me too. I want to build a family with you, to create new memories and share our love with our children. We started planning for our future with excitement and hope. We talked about names, about the kind of parents we wanted to be, and about the life we wanted to create for our children. It was a new chapter, a new beginning, and it filled us both with joy. A year after renewing our vows, Emma and I welcomed our first child into the world, a beautiful baby girl we named Grace. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. Our journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought us to this moment, and it was perfect. Grace brought a new sense of purpose and joy into our lives. She was a symbol of our love, our resilience, and our commitment to each other. Watching Emma with her, seeing the love and tenderness in her eyes, I knew that we had made it through the storm. We had built something beautiful from the ashes of our past. To you, dear listener, if you're struggling in your relationship, know that there is hope. Love isn't just about the good times. It's about standing by each other through the darkest moments, about finding the strength to forgive and to heal. Our story is a testament to the power of love, the possibility of redemption, and the beauty of a fresh start. Our lives were far from perfect, but they were filled with love, trust, and a deep sense of connection. We had faced our demons, confronted our fears, and emerged stronger on the other side. Our journey was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love. As I sat in the nursery, rocking Grace to sleep, I thought about the road we had traveled. It had been filled with pain and heartache, but it had also been filled with growth, healing, and renewal. Emma and I had built a life together, one filled with hope and promise, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Dear listener, if you take anything from our story, let it be this. Love is worth fighting for. It's worth the pain, the struggle, and the effort. It's worth the risk, because when you find that love, when you rebuild that trust, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. Our journey wasn't just about surviving betrayal. It was about finding a way to thrive, to create a life filled with love and joy. It was about discovering the strength within ourselves and within each other. It was about learning that true love is resilient, enduring, and capable of overcoming even the deepest wounds. As Emma and I sat together, watching Grace sleep, I knew that our story was far from over. We had many more chapters to write, many more adventures to embark on, but I also knew that whatever came our way, we would face it together with love, trust, and an unbreakable bond. So to you, dear listener, if you're facing your own challenges, know that you're not alone. Know that healing is possible, that love can be rebuilt, and that the future holds endless possibilities. Keep fighting, keep believing, and most importantly, keep loving, because in the end, love is always worth it.